But at the weekend, I was up around Cork Airport. I was actually picking up some takeout food from the Cork International Hotel, and they're thriving, and they've got a great big takeout business operating out of the hotel. But at the same time, I was up in and around the airport, and the outside multi-story car park, absolutely empty, clearly, because there is very, very little happening in Cork Airport. I found it quite spooky, actually, and it got me thinking about whether or not Cork Airport can survive this financially. And you got to wonder, can Ryanair survive it financially? Can Aer Lingus, do they have a war chest of cash? And then I was wondering, how many planes are actually flying? Where are we all with regards to refunds from Ryanair, Aer Lingus, EasyJet, and all of the other airlines? What's the story on, the green list? I think it's probably deleted of countries, or depleted of countries, certainly, by now. And I said we'd put a call into Eoghan Corry at Travel Extra, and he joins me by phone. Eoghan, good morning.
Good morning.
A lot of ground to cover. Where are we, incidentally, on the green list? Is that gone now?
We'll work our way through most of those questions now, Neil, and as quickly as we can. The green list should be coming to an end this week. In fact, it came to an end last week when it emerged there was no more countries on it as of today. What we are waiting for to see is what the Irish government does next. We signalled months after we first talked about this, like June, July, we were talking about the European aviation policy, Ireland ignoring it, but they signalled that on tomorrow, Tuesday, October the 13th, they're going to align with the European aviation policy. It all sounds very good. The question is it as good as it sounds? The European aviation policy, very clear, agreed at the weekend by the heads of state, and there are 4 important metrics there. A traffic light system, green and amber, people travel with no restrictions. Red, countries can impose restrictions like self-isolation, like Ireland does, and a grey where they don't have enough information. They want to regionalise it so that the Canary Islands is not in with Spain. They also want to make sure that people arriving in airports aren't treated. If you're arriving, let's say, on the German flight into Frankfurt Airport from Dublin, that people who come from areas in Ireland that are not locked down, which we used to have, they're segregated and not treated the same. And what they also want another metric, which is the number of tests. If it's more than 4% positive, that's important because some countries are testing more than others. Luxembourg is a great example. They have a population of 700,000. They've done 900,000 tests because so many people from outlying areas work there. They rate very high in the 14-day incidence charts, and one of the reasons is that people suspect is they've done so many tests. So that's what we're expecting them to align with. It should open 8 or 9 countries. But what I fear is what Eamon Ryan said last Wednesday in the Oireachtas committee, that they'll only take one of the metrics, and they'll say they're aligned with Europe, align with a bit of it, and leave the rest.
And what would that mean? 8 or 9 countries under what? You say a green list, a red list, a grey list?
Okay, and the case rates which some listeners have been following because they've really come into play in the last 6-7 weeks and are used in the green list. It's the cumulative incidence over the last 14 days. And each country, we would have had one of about 4, and that's gone to 110. So each country's seen those incidence rates go higher. And when the aviation policy of Europe was proposed, 25 would qualify you for green and 50 would qualify you for amber. The real problem is that now that the 25 is so low that very few European countries make it, none of them in the European Union. The lowest we can see is Cyprus, Norway, which is about 34.1 at the moment, and that would leave only countries like Norway, Cyprus, Finland, but crucially Germany under the 50 to 100. The imposition we're putting on every single country a 14-day self-quarantine. That's what Europe proposes. Countries can opt to do that. Very few of them do that. There's only about 5 of them do that at the moment. But there's no doubt, Neil, that the core of the problem here is that everybody's rate is running away out of control.
So does it mean that ultimately across the winter, for in the shorter term, that foreign travel's off the cards? I mean, an awful lot of people were travelling to Cyprus over the past 6 or 8 weeks. They were getting a blast of summer, of sunshine there, and I know of many that did go. Is that likely to stop?
I suspect that's the Irish government's approach will be tomorrow, that they will continue to urge people not to travel. The airlines are allowed to travel, the passengers are being discouraged from doing so. And that is what's created the sort of scenes you saw in Cork Airport. Europe wants borders to stay open. The European CDC and the World Health Organization say that closing airports and closing borders doesn't do anything to help the fight against COVID. But the natural reaction of a lot of countries is to start blaming each other. For a good example would be the Czech Republic, which shut all its borders very early on. It now has the highest case rate in Europe, 432.7, whereas countries that kept their borders open have very low ones. Some of them, it doesn't follow that opening and closing borders has any effect on your case rate. It seems to be more local factors that decide that. And Northern Ireland is one of the worst in Europe. If Northern Ireland was a standalone country, it would now be the worst in Europe next to the Czech Republic.
Mm-hmm. What is happening with Ryanair and their threat to pull out of Cork? Do you know?
Ryanair are flying empty flights. They have been flying. They got their load factor up across Europe around August. But what they've been doing, what I noticed they've been doing on the website, is pulling back the frequencies. They say the Irish government policy, they took a court action on this, was effectively preventing passengers booking. So we've had flights arriving into Cork with 3 passengers on board. The result of that is they've threatened to pull almost all their winter services. They've threatened to reduce Dublin to a trickle, and they've said that Cork and Shannon are going to close. That means that Ryanair is effectively the only customer in both those airports, and it means that the 2 airports really will be closed for the winter.
Wow, really? I mean, how can they survive? Like, even closed for the winter and open in the spring? But, like, would that work?
The March is a different game, and the Ryanair are making thunderous noises about we need a change in Irish government policy. We need to.
No, but I'm saying, would Ryanair come back in the spring then, when things become buoyant again and we have a vaccine and people can start flying again? They would come back, wouldn't they? A business,
if the business is there.
But you think it could well be a possibility that Cork Airport would close for the winter soon?
Very, very strong possibility. Now, Cork will have a couple of Aer Lingus services as well. Shannon will have a couple of Aer Lingus services as well. But Shannon's even more dependent on Ryanair. But without Ryanair, there are no flights in and out.
And there would be no point in them remaining open for a couple of Aer Lingus flights.
Not at all. I mean, it calls into question all the staffing. It calls into question the pre-clearance that Shannon has. It calls into question everything.
Wow, that's scary.
And we don't have much time in this, Neil. October, end of October is when the winter schedules kick in. What Ryanair are saying is we need the government to get their act together in terms of allowing people to fly.
Yeah, but would they even want to fly, though? Would people even want to fly?
That's the next query. That's the next question. Ryanair's traditional response on this has been people who don't want to fly when the flight is €100 have no problem flying when it's 10. They stimulate with price. It worked a dream for them during the global financial recession. They grew when every other airline was shrinking, but there's much more at quest here. And what I see, Neil, and I've flown myself since coronavirus with the mask, gone through the airport, I've seen the airports managing, and I haven't been through Cork, but I gather they're managing this very exquisitely. Social distancing, security queues, everything done really, really well. On board, you're very safe, HEPA filters, all of that. But it's like taking the first flight again. It's like telling people you're 12 years of age and you've never been in an airplane, you're not sure to fly, or a nervous person that has never been on it. And it's like taking the first flight again for so many people that I don't think that just offering cheap fares, which Ryanair are doing at the moment. You can get to the Algarve for $14.99 this week from Cork. And is the price enough? I'm not sure it is.
And how many people will be on that flight, do you think?
Reassured. We've seen flights with 4 people.
So why aren't people picking up on deals for return flights to the Algarve for under 50 quid? Why aren't they taking up on the deals like that? Fear?
Because they have to. The government policy at the moment is if you go to Spain or Portugal, you have to self-isolate for 14 days. Fine for people who work for themselves, but also employers are enforcing it. Some of the big employers around Cork are saying you're unpaid isolation for 14 days, or you take it out of your holidays when you return.
Yeah.
It's too big for people to take.
Yeah.
And if you work for a state agency, it's even more problematic if you're a teacher.
Okay, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with regards to the Irish government and this green list and the European initiative this week. And where are people then on refunds? Do you know? I mean, are they ploughing through the refunds, or are they still offering vouchers, or what with regards to Ryanair and Aer Lingus?
All of the above, ploughing through the refunds, and the Ryanair are saying almost everybody is refunded, but it's quite clear from what I'm hearing myself and getting contacted myself and social media that all people have not been refunded. There's another huge problem here, Neil. Ryanair have almost stopped paying refunds that went through intermediaries. They're complaining particularly about the big online guys like Love Holidays and Kayak and people like that.
Yeah.
But one of the people they did, but then they also did the same to Ireland's licensed and bonded travel agents. These are the guys who have been legitimately trading under government licence and have been paid money over to Ryanair on behalf of clients, and now the clients looking for it back, and Ryanair are really playing hard to get with.
They're playing hardball with third-party bookings, you're saying?
Absolutely, and they've made no distinction between the online guys who mark it up a bit and the legitimate Irish bonded travel agent who's already had a torrid summer. They've had no income and they've been paying out all summer. They're probably the most hammered of all the businesses that you can identify out of this COVID-19 mess, certainly in the aviation, travel and hospitality sector. Okay,
listen, thanks for the update. We'll see what the week brings as always. Thanks, Eoghan. Appreciate it. Eoghan Corry from www.travelextra.ie, your go-to place for all matters relating to travel and holidays. Lines open at 1-850 104 106, particularly if you've been overseas. Where were you? How did you get on? What was the flight like? You know, what was it like in the country you were in, particularly if it was a sunshine destination, as I mentioned. I know of people who went to Cyprus and they had a great time of it. Very, very safe, very warm, everything was fine, and thoroughly enjoyed a bit of, I suppose, winter sun, if you like. Back after the break with a story out of